So at the age of 80, she was getting a lot of exercise. She hadn't seen a doctor in at least a decade. We found some old pill bottles, and when I saw her, her blood pressure was extremely high. She couldn't give me any of her medical history. She had a big scar in her neck, so she'd had a carotid endarterectomy, which, you know, tells you she had clogged arteries going to the brain. So very likely had vascular dementia on the basis of the fact her cholesterol was double normal, her blood pressure was extremely high. So all of these things we were able to treat, but how did we do it? Her meds were in a blister pack, and we had a personal support worker going in every morning before she went off for the day and giving her her meds from a locked briefcase. And that worked very well for almost a year. And very close to the Yonge and Eglinton Centre, Sprint runs an adult day program for cognitively impaired seniors. And these sorts of day programs, I'm sure you have them in Thunder Bay, yes? Is there? Yes. I think there are quite a few in the province, and they provide a good supportive environment for cognitively impaired seniors, and they actually have an impact on people's cognition. They improve their cognition by providing a safe, structured, and stimulating environment. And Joyce started to go there every day. And the other important thing about adult day programs is they provide respite for caregivers. And it's sometimes very sad to see a couple in their early 80s, and one of them is cognitively intact and the other one has quite a severe dementia. And the burden of care falls on a frail elderly spouse, and they sometimes, you know, are really quite overwhelmed by not only their own problems, but those of their spouse. And so providing these sorts of supports can make have a critical impact on their quality of life. And the adult day program, I take every family practice resident to the adult day program, and they're all struck by what a happy, pleasant environment it is. You know, I tell them it's kind of like a daycare for seniors, and it's just as happy as a children's daycare. And Joyce really loves it there, and she continues to attend. And Joyce, unfortunately, over not this past winter, but the winter before, there were days when nobody should have ventured out, and Joyce did. And several things happened. She had a series of falls. I photographed her after she had fallen on the ice. And the other thing that happened is she was going to the Yonge and Eglinton Centre, and somebody befriended her and helped her apply for a credit card and used that credit card to make a large purchase at the jewelry store in the Yonge and Eglinton Centre. And the bill came, and Joyce, of course, had no recollection of what had happened. So, you know, cognitively impaired seniors in the community are very vulnerable to financial abuse and other abuse. Joyce also got on the subway a few times and got off at random stops in different parts of town and had no idea where she was and was picked up by the police. And what was interesting, she had a bracelet from the Alzheimer's Society, and the 2 times that she was picked up by the police, she was taken to the emergency department. They didn't know to look. So they had a good learning experience, I'm sure, from the emergency room doc. So Stacy's trying to talk Joyce into using the transportation service, which you can see Joyce isn't really biting. And, well, the supportive housing building for cognitively impaired seniors, interestingly, many of them attend the Sprint Adult Day program. So Joyce knows a lot of the people who live there, and we arranged for Joyce to visit Ewart Angus. It's called Ewart Angus Homes, and she loved it there and agreed to move in. And so here she is shortly after moving into Ewart Angus. And every time I go and see her, she tells me how much she likes living here and how happy she is. And so her quality of life is maintained, her dignity is maintained, and she's aging in place very gracefully. Joyce was in the CBC piece that just aired recently, and they ended the segment with this photograph. That's Joyce holding a picture of herself when she was a teenager. And the last person I'm going to tell you about is Claire. And Clarence has been living in this house since 1928. He's 92 years old. And about 5 years ago, he slipped and fell and broke his ankle, and so was seen in the emergency department. And they hooked him up with Meals on Wheels. And a couple years ago, the Meals on Wheels people noticed that he was really declining. And the Meals on Wheels was being delivered by Sprint. And the Meals on Wheels supervisor said, you know, there's this guy in the community that we see is really not doing well. You know, could you go and see him? So he finally consented. And I found this man sitting in that chair, short of breath at rest. And he had severe untreated congestive heart failure. This guy had not seen a doctor since the 1970s. And so I started treating his congestive failure. I took blood. His blood sugar was 4 times normal, so he had undiagnosed and untreated diabetes. And we managed to get these 2 conditions well under control. And 2 years later, or a year and a half later now, he's in much better shape than he was when I met him. And here he is being interviewed by a family practice resident. And what strikes me about this man, he is a very bright, very articulate man. He was the CFO of an oil company, so the chief financial officer of an oil company, a small oil company that was gobbled up into Texaco in the 50s. But nonetheless, a sharp man. He's lost none of that acuity. And why did this man not seek help? And I see this over and over again. And I think it's this Depression era, very stoic, very self-reliant, very stubborn, very fiercely independent population. And it's a real challenge to find these people and bring care to them. And that's a kitchen that hasn't seen a renovation in a long time. He does a lot of his own cooking. He gets Meals on Wheels once a day, but this man is well fed. You open his fridge and it's well stocked. And he now, he's sort of become the favorite of everybody in the interdisciplinary team. So when we're trying out new assessment tools, we go to Claire. And here's the interdisciplinary team interviewing Claire. We realized he was really the wrong person to go with an assessment tool, because this 8-page, it's called the Manitoba Assessment Tool. It's really a case manager's assessment. Took us an hour and a half to get halfway through it, but so he's doing really well, and thanks to a little bit of care at home, he's going to stay at home. So we're just going to end with a short 5-minute clip from House Calls. Thank you very much.